Okay, let's go.
All right, welcome back to the End Zone. I'm your host, Paul. Today we're going to go over our Week 1 fantasy winners and losers, as well as some good value waiver wire pickups and some guys that we think you should target and some possible trades in your leagues. First off, if you enjoy our content, please leave us a like and subscribe for more. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and go to Brandon. He's going to kick us off with the winners and losers from Week 1.
Starting off with probably the most impressive one, the Dallas Cowboys defense. I think they had something like 40 points. It was a pretty solid performance against the Giants, given it was a rain game, but it was a good defensive outing. Carrying on with wide receivers, Ayuk and Calvin Ridley. I mean, both had great showings. Ayuk, people really weren't sure if he was going to be a true wide receiver one, which I don't know if he's in that territory yet for the 49ers, but I mean, he got the volume. He went 8 for 8 on targets and catches and got 2 touchdowns. So great outing for him. And then Calvin Ridley, I mean, he came back solid. I mean, shoot, he had over a year to kind of sit back, relax, and stay healthy and in shape. And then another one that stood out to me was Anthony Richardson. I think he had something around 24 points, 24.7. He was a little bit of a question mark going into the season, but yeah, he had a good productive outing and put up a good amount of points for a quarterback. On underperformers now, or underperformers, Joe Burrow, 82 passing yards. It was a rough debut for the season for him after frankly getting a big lump sum of money. Then Jahmyr Gibbs, he was super efficient while he had the ball, but their coaching staff talked him up like they were going to use him quite a bit, kind of overhyped him a little bit, and then they just didn't give him the looks, frankly. Najee Harris, I think he put up 2 or 3 points, averaged 4 or 5 yards a carry, but just did not have many carries to him. Kind of a utilization thing, but last year he found a lot of his value in the volume, and that just wasn't there this week at least. And then Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley seemed to kind of steal the spotlight a little bit from him. He went 1 for 3 on catches to attempts. Just not much volume there for him. Hopefully that he can figure that out and find a more productive role in the slot.
All right, thank you, Brandon, for that. We're going to go ahead and move along to some guys you should target in trades in your leagues. Ryan, you want to take that off?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Brandon, for that rundown. I'm going to start off with Elijah Moore, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. Watching that game this weekend, it seems like Deshaun and Elijah have a pretty good connection going on. There wasn't, obviously week 1 kind of working out the rust and kind of getting ready to go. But I think as the season goes along, I think Elijah Moore is going to be Deshaun Watson's probably his favorite target, opposite of Amari Cooper. So I think it'd be good. I think Elijah Moore should be rostered around a decent amount of leagues across the country. So I think he'd be a good target for like a wide receiver 2 flex option if you can go get him. I think Brian Robinson, running back for the Washington Commanders. I've actually met Brian before. This doesn't have anything to do with the trade value, but met Brian, my roommate, when I was playing football at Delta State University. Played high school ball with Brian, and so I got to meet him while he was playing for the University of Alabama. Hell of a dude, hell of a story, but he's also a hell of a football player. Great running back. I mean, Washington, there's a lot of question marks this year. Whenever there's a lot of question marks at the quarterback and the wide receiver positions, you're going to run the ball more. I think he's the clear-cut running back. I know people were kind of big on Antonio Gibson. Didn't do much this week. I think Brian will get the majority of the carry share going through the season. Moving on to the next one, I'm liking T. Higgins. Cincinnati as a whole just looked terrible this weekend. As somebody that had Joe Burrow as his starting quarterback in one of my more important fantasy leagues, I'm very disappointed. But, I think the rust will get knocked off. Joe has kind of done that throughout his career. The first week isn't always pretty. And I think, people are probably going to be upset by the output from Joe, from T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, the whole lot. But I think T. Higgins is a good get. Obviously, Jamar Chase is wide receiver number 1 in Cincinnati. But I think with some of the injury problems that he's dealt with, T. Higgins is always going to be that kind of the second guy that you need to go for. So I think T. Higgins is a good pick. Shoot for him if you can. Throw him in that wide receiver 2 flex, kind of similar to Elijah Moore. At the tight end position, Sam Laporta, I think he had a great first game, rookie tight end. As somebody that drafted him as a backup for Travis Kelce, for them to play against each other. Obviously Kelsey probably would have scored me more points if he was 100%, but Laporta didn't do bad. He gave me around 9. I think he should be pretty rostered, across the country, I would say. And I think, just as the season goes along, as Jared Goff gets more comfortable and they kind of start getting on a roll, I think Laporta is going to be a big target for him. Amon-Ra is obviously kind of receives the majority of the target share in Detroit, but I think Laporta is he'll be a very serviceable tight end for your fantasy team. And then to wrap things up, kind of to call a name out that Brandon said, but Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs' issue was him. Brandon kind of touched on that. He was very efficient when he did have the ball. I think it was just kind of a scheme thing. A lot of the carries that we thought he was going to get, there was all the talk of Dan Campbell saying, we're going to use this guy like it's going to be surprising, this, that, and the other. I guess there is a timeline on that because it hasn't happened yet. I have Gibbs across the majority of my leagues. I was big on him coming in. And I think he should be on most rosters, just given all the hype and everything. People might be upset, go after him if you can. I think Jahmyr at some point during the season is going to kind of break out, and it'll be a very good pickup if you can throw together a trade for him in your league. So, yeah,
thanks for that, Ryan. I really think that was a good touch up on Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, if he didn't slip on his footing there, man, he probably would have scored a touchdown.
Yeah, he would have scored there. Absolutely. And I think I like the Lions as a whole. If you can have anybody on that Lions offense on your team, I think they're going to do pretty well for you, even Goff. So,
yeah, I agree, man. I agree. All right, so now kicking off waiver wires after a hectic week 1. Starting off, I'm going to go with Nico Collins. I just want to give a quick heads up. These aren't just for week 2. This is going to be for the future. I mean, after week 1, it was pretty chaotic. So I want to look at, players that are going to help you in week 2 and beyond. Starting with Nico Collins, Texans are about to go against the Colts. Colts have a lack of proven cornerback depth along with the rest of the AFC South. Collins against the Ravens, they targeted him 11 times. He came down with it 6 times for 80 yards. No scores, but I could see that changing against the Colts. And again, Stroud's going to heavily rely on him. Number 2, going to go with Rashid Shaheed. Keep your eye on him. I mean, Michael Thomas has always struggled with injuries. Shaheed had continuously proves to be a solid deep threat. Carr heavily relied on him against the Titans. All right, number 3, got Puka Nacua. Nacua had 15 targets in place of Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's going to continue to be out for the next 3 weeks. He's on IR, and hamstrings are kind of an injury curse to a player. Only hesitation to have it with Nacua. Again, I think everyone's going to want to go after him, but he does play the 49ers this week, and he plays them again later on this season. I also want to point out the Seahawks didn't have Devin Witherspoon, their top 10 pick, who's going to be there to cover him. But I still see Nacua building that relationship with Stafford and might be able to continue to have a successful season. Number 4, kind of sticking with another rookie here, going with Roschon Johnson. So against the Packers, Johnson had 6 receptions and looked solid in pass blocking. I really think that he's going to take over those third down plays and that third down back roll. He also kind of runs the ball with some grit. He had one of the nastiest truck moves I've seen in a while. I think that their Bears are going to continue to increase his workload week 2 against the Bucks. Bucks do have a good run defense though, so just want to throw that out there. Number 5, another rookie going with Tank Bigsby. Again, although his performance wasn't very great, he is about to go against the Texans, and Bigsby seemed to obtain the majority of the red zone and goal line carries. I see this kind of foreshadowing into a more of a, not necessarily Ezekiel Elliott 2022 season, but I could see him definitely scoring some touchdowns with those kind of touches. Also, I want to bring up that ETN has had some injuries in the past, so it's just something to keep your eye on. Number 6, it's kind of a tricky one. Going to go with the Ravens running backs. Either going to be, Gus Edwards or Justice Hill. We saw them split carries. Hill kind of took advantage with scoring 2 touchdowns. However, Edwards is a little more efficient. So I think that Edwards would be the RB1, but I wouldn't just count out Hill just yet. Maybe take a look at him next week, just seeing how the Ravens progress with that run game. And, we all love a good quickie, so I'm going to shoot these off real fast. Kieran Williams for the Rams, he outsnapped Cam Akers. 49ers D-line is solid, so I think the Rams are going to have to pass the ball a lot more, and he's more of a receiving threat. I'm going to go with Mac Jones, man. Mac Jones had a solid game against the Eagles, one of the best defenses in football, so really could see him continuing to build off of this. Number 9, again, I think Ryan brought up Sam Laporta. I think it's a good target to have, especially with Jameson Williams continuing his suspension. And number 10, Jake Ferguson. Caught only 2 balls in the rain, but he had 7 targets. I think that him and Dak should continue to be a solid option. And he could be a solid option for you if you need a week-to-week fill-in for Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce if they continue to remain out. And so that really wraps up my waiver wires. I really would say y'all keep an eye out for these guys. It also brings to conclusion our video covering our trade talks and our hot and cold for fantasy. If you guys have any questions or have any comments, again, feel free to leave them below. And again, we can't stress this enough. Please hit that subscribe and hit that like button. We really appreciate it. And until then, we catch y'all next time.